trusted friend or an older brother that they don't have, where
That's
they can
great.
feel safe to ask all of the deep, maybe shameful questions that they have that
They're saying the smear campaign is still very much alive. Blake Lively's explosive legal feud with Justin Baldoni has completely unraveled, exposing her manipulative tactics and relentless obsession with control. Apparently, Lively's team has been bombarding the judge with letters 3 or 4 times a day at this point. She orchestrated a smear campaign, intimidated legal teams, and filed fraudulent motions purely to cling to her power. Sources have confirmed that her camp deliberately planted stories about Justin Baldoni. Honestly, when did Blake Lively go from a rom-com sweetheart to a courtroom catastrophe with a raging God complex? Because by June 2025, she hadn't simply stumbled, she had hurled herself headfirst off a legal cliff. This isn't some misunderstood celebrity moment. It's a full-scale meltdown wrapped in luxury, entitlement, and ego. Her once gilded reputation now lies buried beneath lawsuits, denied motions, public embarrassment, and enough delusion to fill an entire awards ceremony. It's painfully clear that she's no longer fighting for truth or justice. She's fighting to stay relevant. Every move she makes radiates desperation rather than dignity. The most recent letter, apparently written yesterday, accuses Justin Baldoni's team of refusing to hand over the evidence she's demanding. They claim they're searching for communications far beyond the agreed time frame. So, how did this chaos begin? It all stems from Blake Lively's bitter feud with director Justin Baldoni. Yes, that Justin, the man she's now painted as the villain in her self-inflicted drama. Rather than handling matters privately, Blake turned it into a nationwide spectacle. Lawsuits sprang up across New York, California, Georgia. You name it, she filed there. It's as though she spun a map and thought, where can I cause trouble today? Subpoenas flew like confetti, and courtrooms became her personal stage. Even the judges appear visibly fed up with the Blake Lively legal show. And let's be honest, from day one, it's been obvious she never intended to go to trial. The goal isn't justice, it's vengeance. She's trying to damage Baldoni's reputation and inflict as much pain as possible. Judge Louis J. Lyman, who's probably aged 5 years dealing with her endless nonsense, recently denied her third motion to compel in a single week. 3 losses in 7 days, an impressive record of failure. Even her own legal filings seem exhausted by their existence. Each time, her team begs the court for new favors, and the judge has now openly criticized her for turning his courtroom into a full-blown circus. Blake's legal tactics aren't about proving a case. They're about shouting, "Look at me! I still matter!" Newsflash, this isn't Gossip Girl, it's federal court. But instead of stepping back, she doubled down. Enter Banzan Incorporated, her mysterious shell company that bizarrely filed a lawsuit without naming a single defendant. Yes, she literally sued nobody. That's not strategy, that's performance art in meltdown form. Imagine walking into court just to yell at thin air. It's giving unhinged theater school energy, not that of a composed celebrity with competent lawyers. It's all starting to look like a textbook narcissistic breakdown. She simply cannot let go, and she's determined to blame anyone but herself. In doing so, she's abusing the court system to sustain a crumbling illusion of control. Through all this chaos, one thing has become painfully clear. Blake Lively isn't a misunderstood genius in crisis. She's a manipulator unraveling in real time, desperately trying to disguise a collapse as a comeback. She's not defending herself. She's flinging legal spaghetti at courtroom walls, hoping something finally sticks. And now her team continues to insist that the smear campaign persists. They've demanded access to communications stretching far beyond what Baldoni's side has offered, from June 2024 to December 2024. But the absurdity doesn't stop there. Let's not forget the PR circus she built, and then tried to blame on everyone else. At the It Ends With Us premiere, all eyes noticed one glaring absence, Justin Baldoni. Then, right on cue, TMZ and the Daily Mail dropped stories about fat-shaming and an inappropriate kiss, tales that conveniently painted Blake Lively as the poor, wronged victim. Total coincidence, of course. It's been said before. Who exactly planted that story about Blake being fat-shamed? Who was present at that private meeting, aware of every detail? That gathering took place inside Blake and Ryan Reynolds' own apartment, with only a handful of people there. So naturally, the leak had to come from someone within Blake's own team. Except, and here's the twist, those leaks reportedly came directly from her apartment meeting. Yes, insiders claim Blake and her inner circle were the ones feeding the tabloids, crafting headlines word for word to protect her image. But rather than take responsibility, she flipped the narrative and blamed Baldoni's team. Blake, you're not the victim here. You're the arsonist holding the match and the petrol. None of Baldoni's people have given Lively's side what they want so far. It's believed they've already got everything they needed from Jennifer Ale. They even seized her phone and its contents. So now, what exactly are they chasing? And if you thought it couldn't get more absurd, think again. Blake actually tried to rope Baldoni's lawyer into her so-called conspiracy. Imagine being so far gone in your own delusion that you start believing your opponent's solicitor is secretly waging a media war against you. No proof, no evidence, just pure paranoia. Meanwhile, her own PR team was feeding stories to the press like it was an all-you-can-spin buffet. Then came the total collapse of her story. Jed Wallace, a crisis PR strategist, was accused by Blake of masterminding the entire smear campaign. Except he was hired on 8th of August, 2 days after the red carpet chaos, 2 days after the headlines exploded, and 2 days after Blake's meltdown had already gone public. So how could he possibly have engineered a PR war that was over before he'd even joined? He couldn't. Blake made the whole thing up because her ego couldn't handle her plan blowing up in her face. Instead of accepting defeat, she went on a blame spree, dragging lawyers, scapegoating PR consultants, and demanding apologies from people who hadn't even wronged her. It's like she's headlining the saddest press tour in Hollywood, one entirely dedicated to her own downfall. She refuses to accept that the failure is hers. Instead, she deflects, denies, and points fingers. But here's where things spiral further. Her legal theatrics spread across America. You'd think that after a string of courtroom humiliations, she might pause for reflection. Not Blake. She doubled down, firing off subpoenas across New York, California, and Georgia as though it were a nationwide circus. She even targeted former Wayfair employees, trying to dig up private messages from people who no longer worked there, bulldozing over privilege laws as if they didn't exist. Attorney-client privilege? Never heard of it. If she can't win with facts, she'll simply bury everyone under an avalanche of paperwork. Her team insists the Wayfair parties haven't given them enough. They want more. They're desperate to find this elusive evidence. And as has been said many times before, the pattern is crystal clear. Individuals using the legal system to harass often flood the courts with endless motions, deliberately confusing judges and driving up costs. But Judge Lyman wasn't fooled for a second. He called her out for filing in the wrong jurisdiction and outright stated that she and her legal team were abusing the system to harass others. And truthfully, that's exactly what this has become. Blake isn't pursuing justice. She's manufacturing chaos. Her entire strategy hinges on distraction. Overwhelm the courts, shift the blame, make the other side look suspicious. If she screams non-compliance loudly enough, perhaps people will forget she's the one who started this legal bonfire. Let's be honest. The Amber Heard comparisons are impossible to ignore. Blake's entire approach reads like a recycled playbook. Weaponize the system, play the victim, distort the facts, and hope the public's too distracted to notice. The only difference? Amber could at least keep a straight face. Blake, on the other hand, looks seconds away from losing composure every time one of her motions gets denied, which, by the way, happens almost weekly now. This isn't just bad legal strategy. It's a public unraveling masquerading as courtroom drama. And if you think that was her breaking point, think again. It was merely the warm-up. Because here's the fatal flaw she clearly didn't anticipate. Timelines don't lie. In her amended complaint, Blake claimed the so-called smear campaign began on 7th August with Jed Wallace's social combat plan. Sounds dramatic, doesn't it? Except for one glaring problem. Jed wasn't even hired until 9th August, 2 full days after the media storm had already exploded. So her entire narrative doesn't just collapse, it exposes her as the architect of her own chaos, the reasons and ways she's been misusing the court system are becoming increasingly apparent, and one of them is through subpoenas. We already know that, in my view, she abused the subpoena process by filing that sham lawsuit under Banzan Inkitbang, which didn't even sue anyone, claiming reputational harm that supposedly befell her. Let's break this down, Blake. If the PR man you're accusing of masterminding your downfall didn't even enter the picture until after the chaos had already begun, then who exactly are you blaming? Because that timeline doesn't expose Jed Wallace, it exposes you. It shows you twisted facts, shifted dates, and expected everyone to nod along like extras in your personal melodrama. But this isn't the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. It's a federal courtroom, not a fan club. And about that so-called social combat plan your team paraded around as if it were a smoking gun, it wasn't some shadowy conspiracy. It was a $30,000 a month PR package from Street Relations, a firm that manages online negativity for brands. No smear campaign, no troll army, just basic social media damage control, the sort every influencer with a messy comment section already keeps on retainer. Calling that a criminal plot is like calling customer service a covert operation. But of course you couldn't resist adding extra drama. You pointed to a quote, the expensive option, $175,000 for a 3 to 4 month blitz, including Reddit monitoring and fan engagement, as proof of evil intent. Except for one small detail, you never even bought it. That plan was pitched, considered, and rejected. It never existed beyond a PDF in a meeting. Yet here you are, acting as though it were evidence of a vast conspiracy. It's the legal equivalent of reading a menu and claiming food poisoning because the prawns might have been bad. You didn't even order the prawns, Blake. Sit down. Then came the leaked emails, carefully edited, conveniently timed, and designed to make it appear as if the world were plotting against you. But the reality is simple. The dates don't line up, the tone isn't threatening, and the money trail ends before anything ever began. You built a castle out of thin air, hoping no one would notice it's floating. And to be blunt, your lawyers are banking on the public being too distracted or too gullible to connect the dots. But people have, and the truth is deafening. The only person still buying Blake's story is Blake. Now let's get to the real reason behind this entire meltdown. It's not about justice nor trauma, it's about control. Industry insiders have confirmed what everyone suspected from the start. You didn't just want a star in It Ends With Us. You wanted to run it. From casting to color grading, you demanded every creative decision go through you. You were already maneuvering to direct the sequel. This wasn't artistic vision, it was a power grab dressed up as passion. The breaking point came when Justin Baldoni refused to hand over the dailies, the raw, unedited footage. Those clips meant power, leverage, and control. When he said no, everything spiraled. Suddenly, there were grievances, claims of a toxic work environment, and creative disputes. But here's the truth. Sony might have backed your casting, but they didn't own the IP. Wayfarer did, which meant you were never going to control the franchise, no matter how many tantrums, headlines, or lawsuits you threw at it. So you did what you always do. You tried to force it. You used the courts, you used the press, and you weaponized sympathy to paint yourself as a silenced visionary rather than what you really were, a control-obsessed actress furious that someone told her no. Ryan and Blake are still alleging a coordinated defamation campaign against them, claiming that negative stories were planted in the press, and demanding that Wayfarer disclose its communications with various parties. Behind the scenes, Blake was allegedly tossing around legal threats like party favors, demanding control over everything from camera angles to set design, turning the production into her personal Pinterest board. It wasn't creative passion, it was obsession, and it cost her everything. In her attempt to become the next Reese Witherspoon, she instead turned herself into a Hollywood warning label. And just when it seemed the chaos had peaked, she unveiled her grand finale, the mythical smear campaign that never even existed. Her team scrambled to tie together Wayfarer, Jed Wallace, and Brian Friedman, desperate to sell a story where she was the hunted victim. But the records tell a very different story. Every document, every email, every filing reveals the truth. The only real smear campaign came from Blake's camp, leaking that kiss rumor and crafting the victim narrative she now hides behind. She made her own choices. In this case, this entire saga blew up in her face. She's filed countless motions to compel, issued a barrage of subpoenas, and is now trying to drag in another former JonesWorks employee who quit after working on the Wayfarer account. The emails from 8th and 9th August made everything crystal clear. Jed Wallace wasn't scheming against Blake Lively. He was protecting Wayfarer's investment. No secret plots, no shady backroom deals, just a PR professional doing his job. His communications showed no malicious intent or targeted attacks, merely routine crisis management for a studio caught in the storm. Even the judge stepped in with a brutal reality check, ruling that a smear campaign isn't even an actionable legal claim. It's not defamation unless it's a proven lie made with deliberate malice. And under that standard, Blake's entire argument collapsed. She had no evidence of lies, no proof of intent. Just a trail of selective leaks and contradictions pointing straight back to her. In trying to prove she was the victim, she exposed herself as the instigator. Her playbook was simple. Shout "smear campaign" loudly and long enough, and pray no one looks too closely at the receipts. But they did. And those receipts didn't just destroy her case, they revealed her entire manipulation strategy. Yet, even after losing repeatedly, Blake still doesn't see it. She's trapped in a cycle of self-inflicted chaos, swinging at shadows, accusing anyone who won't hand her control, and torching every relationship within reach. The very evidence she once flaunted as proof of innocence is now proof of her downfall. Blake Lively isn't just losing in court, she's losing in Hollywood and in public opinion. Her legal missteps have become an ongoing spectacle, and the audience isn't laughing with her anymore, they're laughing at her. And just when you think she's done, she doubles down. Her latest fiasco? Trying to access Wayfarer's protected internal investigation files, completely disregarding the concept of attorney-client privilege. The judge didn't merely deny her motion, he practically mocked it, asking if she was serious. Blake tried to argue that Wayfarer had waived privilege through its 13th affirmative defense, claiming the company had acted appropriately when addressing her complaints. But that didn't open the door to those files. Once again, she was wrong. Confidently, publicly, and loudly wrong. And as if that weren't enough, she took her meltdown one step further, going after Brian Friedman's law firm. She actually subpoenaed the firm representing Wayfarer, demanding bank statements, internal emails, and even influencer payment records. It was a desperate, reckless move that defied every shred of logic. At this stage, Blake isn't pursuing justice. She's performing. Filing motions like tantrums dressed up as PDFs, flinging accusations and hoping something sticks. But nothing is sticking. Each loss digs her deeper. Each filing makes her look more unhinged. And every courtroom appearance turns her once golden reputation into a slow-motion implosion for the world to see. She's now subpoenaing Brian Friedman and his firm, accusing him of being part of the so-called smear campaign. Yes, you heard that right. And today, a judge actually denied her motion to compel. The denial was telling because Blake knew when she filed it that the judge had no jurisdiction over the matter in the first place. Friedman's firm wasn't having it. They hit back with a scathing motion to quash, accusing Blake Lively of harassment, intimidation, and weaponizing the discovery process purely for attention. And frankly, they nailed it. This was never about justice. It was about keeping the spotlight on herself. Every filing, every accusation, every outburst was just another desperate grab for relevance. One legal analyst summed it up perfectly: litigation by tantrum. And even that might be too kind. Blake isn't litigating anymore. She's unraveling, leaving metaphorical thread marks across the courthouse floor. While she flails before judges, Hollywood is backing away quietly, like guests at a party trying to avoid the unstable ex who's had one too many. The shift in public perception has been brutal, and it's unfolding in real time. Whitney Cummings delivered the harshest reality check yet on her podcast, roasting Blake as everyone's messy mom, the one who texts at 2 a.m. and always has to be the center of attention. It wasn't even cruel. It was accurate. Blake has turned every red carpet, hearing, and press moment into a one-woman production starring only herself. Then came the industry's ultimate rejection. Netflix quietly removed her Conversations with Courage special from its 2nd July 2025 release slate. No statement, no explanation, just gone. As if they couldn't distance themselves quickly enough. That's not just bad optics. That's career triage. It sent a message louder than any headline. Even the platforms that once backed her have checked out. Sony, once her strongest supporter, has gone completely silent too. No press releases, no sequel chatter, nothing. They've realized what everyone else has. No one wants to be dragged into a personal vendetta masquerading as empowerment. Hollywood adores drama, but not when it spills off screen and into depositions. And Blake has officially crossed that line. Now she's radioactive. Even influencers and entertainment reporters have turned her downfall into content gold. From YouTube breakdowns to Instagram reels, everyone's dissecting her every move. Not because she's powerful anymore, but because she's become a punchline. Each headline, each motion, each exclusive source reeks of vanity and desperation. The truth is, this was never about safety, justice, or feminism. It was about control. Blake believed she could bully, sue, and spin her way into power. But in doing so, she exposed exactly what she's been trying to hide all along: insecurity masked as righteousness. Hollywood's tolerance for chaos has its limits. Egos are fine, feuds are expected, but someone who weaponizes the legal system, embarrasses studios, and wastes the court's time while demanding sympathy? That's a career death sentence. Blake thought she could control the narrative forever, but the narrative has turned on her. The spotlight she fought so hard to keep has become a floodlight, exposing everything she tried to bury. She's no longer the heroine of her story. She's the villain. Of her story. She's the villain.